Good morning and welcome again to another one of the Wealth Mosaic's WealthTech Talks. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Stephen Wall, co-founder and head of marketplace and content of the Wealth Mosaic. I won't give a long introduction to the Wealth Mosaic. We'll turn it over to the topic and focus on what we want to talk about today. So I'm joined by two guests today, and we're going to talk about designing an engaging experience with technology in the wealth management arena. So we all know from the research and the world that we live in, not referring necessarily to the world we live in right now, but the generic themes that we've all been seeing for a while, that the wealth management sector is changing, from the drivers of regulation, technology, client expectations, so on and so forth. So the traditional wealth management model is up for change. The role of technology is undoubtedly pushing further and further into the consciousness and the being of wealth management. So can wealth managers continue to win business and engage clients and service clients and push themselves forward purely through brand and heritage and the old model of personal referral alone? Or what can technology do to enhance, to support, and to improve the market and to move it into a more of a modern era? So today we're going to talk about all the issues to do with designing an engaging experience for advisors, for clients, for whoever's in that network through technology. So I'm joined today by Jaime Bolivar, who is Managing Director of TechRules based in Spain, and Theo Paraskevopoulos, CEO of Invessed, who's based in Germany. So quickly, before we go into the session, we've got 60 minutes with you today. Please, for those listening in, ask questions. We'll deal with those either as we're going through or at the end. But Theo and Jaime, if I could ask you both to introduce yourselves first. If we go clockwise around the screen, that probably makes sense. There's just two of you, so it's not too complicated. But we'll start with Theo first. A quick introduction, please, to yourself and what you do.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. My name is Theo Paraskevopoulos, and I'm Chief Executive at Invest. Invest is a digital experience platform for wealth managers, private banks, asset managers for all investment brands. As a digital experience platform, we do things like client reporting, fund marketing, security, content management, analytics, and we wrap all this up. We package all it up in a neat software as a service package. And when we deliver it, the idea here is that the implementation happens within weeks and not months. That's what Invest is trying to do. One final note for me in terms of my background, I'm also a designer by trade. So this subject of design experience is very close to my heart. And in fact, I make a point of starting all our projects, all our implementations with a design, with the user in mind, what it is that the user or the client is trying to achieve, and how do we produce the best experience to satisfy that need.
Great, thank you, Theo. And Jaime, to you, please.
Well, this is Jaime Bolivar. Good morning, everybody. I'm Managing Director of TechRules and co-founder of the company. We started in the year 2000, and I've been working 20 years at TechRules since then. Really boring experience because I've been very focused on technology and asset management. That's what I've been doing. In the previous company, Expert Timing System, that I work as head of product development, and I did a lot of asset management, always very related with technology that I really love. No? And TechRules, what we do is we develop financial solutions for wealth and asset management firms. We have clients in Europe and Latin America, basically, and we provide wealth tech platforms. We enable our clients to build a customized digital wealth asset management ecosystem based on their specific needs. That's basically what we do. Digital boarding, advice our customer, web portals, integration with different technologies, investment management too. All APIs solution and reporting and communication channels.
Great. Thank you, Jaime. So thank you both. So in terms of the structure of today's webinar, we're going to look a little bit at an introduction to the topic and then run through things like the drivers, the status of where is wealth management in terms of its use of design and building an engaging experience with technology, and then look at some of the challenges, opportunities, and focus on action points. So a fairly structured session. We'll have hopefully an engaging discussion between our two guests today. So first of all, Theo, you touched on design and your background. So if we look a little bit at an introduction to what this is, can you tell us what design is in the context of technology in the wealth management sector? What are we talking about in here? maybe it's not something that people think about in wealth management, but so maybe you can tie the two together for us to start off with.
Sure. I'm actually going to start in reverse and just talk about what I think is not, or what it is that we're not talking about here. So we're talking about designing experiences. So we're not merely talking about look and feel. So this is a phrase that I hear a lot in every project that we get involved with. So look and feel. So we're talking about designing an experience, not an object, or in fact, not just an object. So not just a report. So an experience is the sum of all touch points that a customer or a prospect before they become a customer has with a company. It might be that they see a website or a login form or a report. All these things, together with all the offline aspects, are part of the experience. So we're talking about designing the entire experience, not just an individual object. And in that light, design is a process. That's an important point. I'll keep coming back to that. Design is a process, not a deliverable. It's not something that we do once and we let go. But what is design? What is its job in terms of wealth management? To make it more real, I think it has got two jobs. The first is to accentuate the positives. Now, we use this phrase of performance attracts assets, but service retains them. It's another way of saying that customers perceived a well-designed service or a well-designed experience as a service that will deliver better performance. Now, that is actually based on a psychology rule. This is based on a user experience rule that we use a lot, that a well-designed application is also perceived as being more usable, and it flows into the perception of the entire service. The second part is about eliminating bad experiences. Another rule of user experience that we frequently fall back onto is that people judge an experience based on its peak and its end, not as an average of all the of every moment within that experience, which means that it becomes then very, very important to eliminate any hurdles, any bad experiences, any fallbacks within the entire experience continuum, if you like.
Fantastic, great introduction, Jaime. Picking up on that, do you have a similar view, in building technology for the clients you've worked with?
Yeah, I can agree with what Theo said. That for me, the design is how to build a solution that solves a specific task the advisors has to come through in order to do business. Let your clients become an important part of the decision-making process. Listen to your clients' needs. And design includes deliverables like surveys, goal setting, content strategy, user experience strategy, testing, audits, site architecture, interactive prototypes, and more. So it's a big job to do. But user experience is critical. It's part of the client service, also in wealth management, and how to make simple something that in some cases it is not. It's not an easy job. How to create what they call now a wow service. Customers should feel engaged immediately. Creating, for instance, creating large elements with simplified designs. Even a child could understand actionable call to action. Always stays experience with outsiders. And also, there's a very important part in design is user journeys. Digital businesses are simple compared with other channels. They should be agile, data-driven, and adapt quickly to rapidly changing customer behaviors. Yeah. We need to change our mindset. Platforms have been designed around functionality. We need to design around journeys. Today, it's a fact that clients demand also real-time and accurate information to follow their investments. And that's also something that we also have to consider. The pandemic has changed rapidly, and you want everything just real-time. WhatsApp and all of these communication channels that you're 24/7 connected with your clients.
Yeah. Okay, so first up straight away, there's a lot in there, right? And we're talking about a journey, so this is continuous. It's not a one-point activity and then it's ended once you've delivered the first round of results, or however you wish to frame it. So maybe wealth management, financial services doesn't have that mindset. I think Jaime just mentioned changing the mindset. So Theo, where is, if we talk about market status and understanding the things that you're talking about, how would you describe wealth managers in their understanding and engagement with this topic and their willingness to move forward with it?
Oh, I think the willingness is there. I think that if anything, this last year, the pandemic has brought in such a massive acceleration on trends that were existing before in terms of digitization. So I think that the will is there. We see this in the amount of interest that a digital experience platform would receive. So not just us, but also kind of competing platforms. And I know from the market that there is a lot of interest in moving things along. However, I think that the current status in the industry is still probably a couple of years behind some other sectors that have not been necessarily so reliant on personal relationships so far. So there is still, if you like, wealth managers still have got the luxury of being slightly more slowly adapting to this, because personal relationships, even through a digital channel, will facilitate their business, will keep the business going. However, things are moving, and I think they're beginning to understand that there are some areas, some huge areas where there is some improvement, and this is down to the tools that they already have. So I still think that most wealth managers see design as a deliverable. They see it as a siloed practice. When we have a project, a new website, a new portal, then we design the thing and then we move on, rather than we need to put design above all this. And then when there is a new project, a new platform, it needs to borrow from the principles of design that we have set up at the top. There is also a function of the tools that have been available. There is a lot of legacy out there. There is also a lot of constraints. We'll talk about later about things like security. You know, this kind of big digitalization process comes with all the challenges of info security. Everybody in financial services know that as soon as say e-banking, which was maybe for a lot of us was a given, as soon as it became mainstream across the entire population that maybe isn't as digitally savvy this year, the amount of scamming, amount of online scam has actually gone up, and that is something that will affect absolutely everyone. So these are some of the things that people have to deal with. So the status at the moment, to summarize, is that the will is there. That has certainly moved on since a year ago, but the tools and the shift in mindset has not yet been completed. We don't yet have everything in place.
Yeah. And Jaime, I think, as a reference, and as Theo just referenced, the change of mindset, is that something that you see now? So, we need to move away from productization to more of a generic strategy broadly across the group. Is that a kind of theme you see in the market, or how would you explain where you see the status of this market?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the market, there are these new players coming into the business. I'm talking about, these neobanks. Actually, in financial markets, these neobanks or robo-advisors, they're coming to the business. They offer a great user experience services and a very competitive price. Don't forget, pricing is going down, margins are going down. And you have to be really fit to this new situation. They are an important reference in the market. The robo-advisors, the combination of asset and wealth management is a key factor of success right now in the industry. Do not forget that investors want performance. They need to meet their financial goals, so they need to have a well-structured proposition that is agile enough to adapt to different market conditions, and AI and new quantitative techniques help achieve these tasks. Okay, so that combination, I would say, between asset and technology, it's critical nowadays. And also these do-it-yourself solutions. Like other industries, like travel, offering good tools in order to make informed decisions. We developed a platform in 2014, that is T-Advisor. It's a self-direct solution. We do nothing, we just push tools there, and now we got more than 50,000 users. And they're really happy. You just have to listen and adapt it exactly to what they need. So I think that's important. What more should be focused on its efforts, and why? How to demonstrate value we add to our clients. We need to differentiate from competitors and try to offer something unique. Every word should serve to a purpose by moving prospects through the experience toward conversion. And advisors just need good tools to engage clients. Building a relationship digitally without face-to-face contact, how to work digitally. COVID-19 is surprising how quickly we can adapt. Change is possible, of course, but we have to build in this momentum, embrace something that is new. Pandemic has accelerated digitalization, basically.
Yeah. You've both raised a couple of points there, and I just want to sort of not much go off theme, but throw one particular question in. As this industry has often, not always, but often maybe portrayed itself as complex, as sophisticated, and there's a lot of asset classes, there's potentially a lot of products. The neobanks, the robo-advisors have a relatively, so far, simple offering. It's not that complicated. Can, let's say, the traditional wealth management market marry a complicated proposition with a simple experience? Are the two conflicting? Does it work? Can they be married together?
Theo, let me say, you just said something. Something really important. We come from the industry that is selling products to an industry that is selling a solution, a service. Okay. Of course, that part of the work is simplified, and these ETFs have become and funds are a much easier way through invest, and that's here to stay. I suppose that's. I completely agree in that way. There are other things that have become more complex, but from the product point of view, is less important in the process now.
All right. So I really like that question about being able to deliver a complex solution in a simple experience, and in fact, that is the whole role of design. There, you can think of the amount of technology that goes behind, a simple silver device like a laptop. You can see the amount of algorithms that go behind a Facebook stream or behind the simple search box that Google will give you, and yet it's so broken down when it comes to the point of delivery to a customer. It's broken down to that little thumbs up, or to the little tech box with just a magnifying glass, or to the silver box. That's how it's delivered. So I'd go as far as to say that it's the job of design to reverse the relationship between the complexity of the service and the delivery, or the usability of the product itself. And in that sense, I think the financial services is right there where it should be in terms of complexity. It is a complex service. The number of products has exploded. There is a lot more a solution, what Jaime said, the solution-based delivery of the service. You can personalize the products. There is even compliance and regulation is much more complex. Yet the tools are all there for designers and for the people that implement and create technology to simplify the delivery of the solution.
Yeah.
It just takes a different way of thinking about it.
Yeah. Given we've talked about mindset, but we've talked about willingness, if you were to boil down why wealth managers should actually care, so if you think about the drivers, the influences, the things that are pushing the market forward, the things that might disrupt them, or we've talked about, I think Jaime mentioned margin pressure and the entrance of neobanks and robo-advisors and other digital tools. Why should they care? Why should they move? What is it about? Is it about design that can increase their KPIs? How would you sort of summarize that? We go to Jaime first, if we can.
Well, there is same as in other industries. I said there are workflows. They have to be less than 2 minutes process. It is if it's too long, people will not finish it. I'm talking about this digital channel. So you have to keep your interface clean and simple so that people understand. Otherwise, you lose the deal. Today, the way you communicate with your clients is real time. Is the post-COVID era. WhatsApp, video calls, emails, 100% of contacts. So full range of communication, options and services. The advisor and the client are in touch more frequently. So the contact needs to be high quality and limited in time. Another fact is the advice gap. Investors with a lower amount of money, 100% non-face-to-face contact. You want to go to a large, broader audience, you need this kind of solutions that can handle this type of clients. And managing high number of clients requires tested algorithms that deliver high quality outputs. Massive portfolio rebalancing, automate marketing campaigns, portfolio reporting. If you don't have these really tested algorithms, you can fail and you can get in trouble. That means the amount of data that you have to consider is huge. To make it understandable, you need proven technology that easily classifies and solves any problem it may find. We have a service called data quality assurance that it's much appreciated from our clients. Before we put that data into the platform, we need to check that it's correct, and that's something almost in all of our clients we are providing this solution, because otherwise in garbage out. Concern about control of the data we manage. Theo said, make sure you're not sharing data. That's something that in financial markets everybody is really concerned about. And the last element I want to mention, it's you have to be integrated with social. Make it easy for your audience to promote products, contribute content like reviews and thoughts, and interact with other customers within your funnel. T advisor, we always have that element. People have to be able to share. I like this fund. I like to how it's performing. I like this portfolio. I like this service. So that's one of the most important marketing tools in your platform.
Perfect. Theo, do you want to pick up on any elements of that, or provide your own?
Yeah. Actually, all these elements, the integration with social, these all play onto the same pressures, the same drivers that I generally summarize with the simple and memorable words of the world has moved on. If you want to break it down, it basically means this. It's customer expectations have now moved and are shaped by what they get on their mobile phones, by their devices, by big tech. They expect the same amount of seamless service that is connected with social, that gives them a voice, that lets them create their own content and recommendation, that has got the same security that they can bypass or they can go through really quickly. So they expect that technology, not just from Google and Amazon. They expect that from absolutely every service that they deal with, and they expect it to be digital first. If that's if the last year has accomplished anything, is to kind of get us into a digital first world. And an example I can think of over here is when we had somebody I know who tried to make a change onto the portfolio, contacted their advisor. They wanted basically to switch a fund or a security around. And what happened there was that they went digital on part of the process. They completed the form, all good, and then there was no confirmation. And then 5 days later, as they were about to contact customer support to say, has my order gone through, a letter arrived. And the whole disjointed feeling of, I completed the form over here, it's online, and yet I have to wait 5 days for an offline confirmation to arrive via post, and started creating questions like, is that where my money is going? So when you guys charge me fees, you charge me fees so that you send me letters at the end of an online form. So the whole point here is that it's a small little example, but it is, I mentioned earlier about failings in the low points in an experience, but it created such a bad impression that talking about recommendations and going over to social to make your recommendations good or bad, that would be the next thing that they do. They're not going to keep stewing about it. Bad steps, eliminating these failings in experience do matter, and especially at the time when people get so much, the customers have so much voice.
Yeah. just thinking back to what Jaime said, just mixing up some of your comments there. I wonder. I mean, Theo, you said earlier, that we all know the siloed approach to a lot of things in this industry. It's not this consistent view that is then sort of attached to different development streams. When thinking about design, we've seen with some traditional banks, when they launch a robo, they do it as a very segmented offer. So it's kind of pushed out and tested. Are they focusing design on client acquisition or, existing clients? Is it about prospecting? So, are they doing it across the board, or are they doing it very much around, we want to win new clients in new generations, or is it about existing clients? Do they apply a consistent approach, or do they bring design into attack the next generation, for instance?
I certainly think that this is the intention. I think that the intention is to see beyond the current client base and the current way of interacting with this client base that might be a bit more traditional, more relationship driven, and try to bring it on to a more mass market where perhaps the size of the portfolios will be smaller, and maybe the service will be a little bit more, or actually fully more commoditized or automated. If in the case of a fully automated robo-advisor. So I think that the intention is to dip your feet into a new way of working without necessarily cannibalizing or alienating your current market, because even now the vast majority of wealth management AUM, I believe, is in a much older generations that prefer that personal service. I prefer to have somebody at the end of a phone, if you like, to call. So I can see why the industry is responding this way, because a critical mass of wealth has not yet crossed generations. So I can see why people's heart don't seem to be in it. They spin off different branch, or maybe they buy stakes in digital wealth managers or robo-advisors to kind of see, and wait to see which way things are going to move on. But I think that as this process gathers pace, and especially in this last year that has achieved so much, it has achieved within 1 year, COVID has actually delivered so much acceleration to digital uptake than, that would normally take more than 10 years to do so. Anyway, I think that things are moving. So I think that we're going to start seeing big brands, big corporate brands actually moving in that space, and quickly, and wholeheartedly, actually, with full platforms under their own brand. And one more pressure here that could come into place would be the move of one of the big Silicon Valley names into this space. So far, they have focused maybe on payments. They've gone into fintech a little bit, but not into our space so much. There has been some movement in China, of course, and but not just yet. If a Google was to launch a wealth manager right now, it would upend the industry. Hasn't happened so far. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen tomorrow.
Yep. Okay. And Jaime, what do you think? Do you see design as sort of very focused on new clients or a certain segment of clients, or is it a consistent theme across an institution?
Well, from my experience, and my experience is mainly based on my actual client, it's very important to know which is the starting point. Are you a new entity, a new player that just want to bring new clients fast? Or you're an existing player and you already have many clients, but you want to give them an added value service where you can earn more money because you're giving a better service or more complex service, moving from just simple custody or simple brokerage to, robo-advisor service. So depending on that starting point, you have to focus your or concentrate your efforts in that challenge. New entity, we work with big new robo-advisors, and they're really focusing on adding new services to their existing clients and attract new clients, and keeping going really fast compared with other players, that go really fast. And existing entities that they have this big amount of clients that you want to move from one service to another. How do we move them? How we convince them to get into the new robo-advisor area and everything automated financial planning. So I think that's, for me, that's the biggest difference.
Okay. I want to look a little bit at the challenges that any wealth management / financial services institution would have in engaging design. So we've said there's willingness, we can see there's drivers, there's potential threats of a big entrant who does this as part of their core mindset. Why would a wealth manager that wants to do more here struggle? What are the challenges that they face and perhaps the barriers? Jaime, what you've mentioned there, moving one business to another unit, and what are the challenges they face when they're trying to bring design into their business?
Yeah, let's move to one thing that Theo said is, those legacy systems, those existing legacies. I want to name this as the first point, because when we start a project with an existing entity, that has a real legacy, it's not easy to be able to change things easily. So, and one point is integration. With these systems that are, and it's critical for a critical job. To get the most of them is a challenging task. It can be a big barrier. The ability to deploy new functionalities within these existing systems, that's something that you have to consider. At TechRules, since we started in year 2000, this has been our job, to deliver a working solution within existing platforms that they cannot easily change. It's not easy for them to change. APIs. It's a simplification. Now projects within you don't need a 3-year transformation program. No, that's over. You need something that you can deliver fast, they can test, and you can grow upon it. Yeah? Another thing challenge is get people involved in that decision process. What they call now citizen developer. They are the ones who decide how the tool wants to react, how to work. Now let's bring something that's really important now: machine learning. Listen to your client needs, personalization of data. We haven't started yet to leverage on this and how it might respond to in some situations. You need an enormous amount of data to get a good calibrated model. So understand the uses of it. It is going to take some time. Nowadays, the amount of as we name security attacks we get is huge. Using machine learning to detect these attacks can be very interesting. Using AI in investment management processes, more dynamic rebalancing using AI. That's something we're working on. Financial planning with artificial intelligence. It is possible. Always with a human oversight, I think. Validating what the algorithm is telling us. When an investor comes to retire, there's a need of emotionally connect. There's where it has an impact. How big pots do we need? I need to meet my needs. The biggest mistake is having a very conservative investment many times. But if you have this machine that is telling you have enough time, to invest, risk a little bit higher, you can do it. And also ethic governance that is becoming very, very important now. I can name another, things like blockchain, there's this distributed trust moving away from countries, or the tokenization, digitalized. It's also something that is becoming important within our platform, not considering only just traded funds or ETFs, but those assets that are not in the market, that you can make it tokenized and see the whole view of the wealth of the client. And finally, something that we use a lot is Power BI, business intelligence, provide users dashboards instead of reports, moving from static report to dynamic dashboard in real-time information. That's something that people love to have, and the cost and time implementation is really low. So I think those are some challenges that I think is interesting to name.
Yeah. Well, there's several there, right? So Theo, maybe you can add to that. I don't know. One thing is interesting, to what extent design clashes with legacy technology. Do the two fit together? Can they work together, or do they sort of cancel each other out, or just simply not fit together? And then, of course, there's all those elements that Jaime mentioned, and many more. There's this complexity in the market. So, yeah. How do you add to that?
So, the array of technologies that is available now, anything from machine learning to, blockchain was mentioned, all these things that are absolutely amazing technologies and what they can bring. But the amount and complexity of these technologies is already a design challenge. We're working with an ML, with a machine learning partner in this, and we have identified, just to stay on the point of ML for a second, we have identified the key element of explainability as a key usability or design consideration for machine learning. That is the fact that machine learning, you feed it a lot of data, you train the model or the algorithm, it kind of gives you a prediction, and that is a black box. Training a model to be able to explain why it came to that recommendation is important, not just for usability, because that's a design purpose, but it's also important for regulation, for compliance. Yeah. And you get to a point where a typical challenge or obstacle to design innovation, say regulation, actually the two of them go together. You have a strange synergy of design and compliance coming together and demanding explainability from this AI. And even when it comes to things like blockchain with inherent opaqueness or intransparency, you still need to look into it. You still need to report on it. You still need to have it explainable and some way understand what it is that's going on over there. So that's one design challenge. Legacy for sure is another one. Legacy is the enemy of change in some ways. Our industry has always been an enthusiastic adopter of new technology. And even 20 years ago, when other sectors were still just experimenting with things, financial services were still splurging out on buying new tech. That also means that we still are faced with systems that could be 20 years old because the industry is so tech happy. I sometimes deal with custom-made content management systems, which in 2021 feels such a weird thing to have to deal with. Anyway, so legacy is there, compliance is there, new technology is there, info security is there, all these challenges are there. But design is here to solve problems. Once you put everything as a steps in the process, you can actually come up with really innovative solutions. One of the things that we have put together for one of our asset management clients is to take compliance and compliance walls and login walls, and instead of treating them as a feature or as here's something we need to build, we treat them as pins in the user journey. Jaime mentioned user journeys and how important they are at the beginning, and that is such a good case to the point. Move compliance walls, terms and conditions, acceptances, and logins and all the things, move them to the point where you absolutely need them. Don't put them in the beginning as everybody does. Welcome to our site, select your profile. That is just the best way to lose conversions, the best way to lose customers. Move them to the point where you absolutely need them. Do you need them just before you show performance to a product? Then put it there. So you can come up, working iteratively, you can come up with good ways to handle even the most challenging issues, legacy, compliance, all these things.
Perfect. Let's move it. So there's a lot there. We could go into huge detail on these topics, I'm sure. So let's just move it to the opportunity. So what's the opportunity from bringing design to this sort of technological experience? So, I don't know I know you've laid out some areas. I mean, Theo, you just mentioned then about, responding to compliance or marrying two needs in one process. Jaime, when you work with clients and you're bringing design to their infrastructural technology needs, what are the things that they think they can win, and or what are the things that you think they can win through improving their design experiences for clients or advisors or whoever?
Well, the truth is, it's not something new. What you want to achieve anyway. You want to achieve increase customer satisfaction, improve business efficiency, reducing cost. Advisors more focused on client relationship or generating prospects or more data to understand the business. I mean, it's at the end the goal is always the same. It's you have to be more efficient nowadays. As I mentioned, margins are going down. You have to be really accurate with what you invest and how many people you have in your staff. You have to try to reach a bigger market, bigger segment, and this with a good design, with a good technology, you can. I think you can achieve it. We see our clients, having increasing the number of clients in a monthly basis, growing really really fast, and being able to manage, these massive rebalancing portfolios almost once a month. These machines that you have, the service that they have in cloud. So if you have the right infrastructure and you have developed the right workflows and processes, I think you can be a much successful company.
Yeah. And Theo, so there's the client growth story, I suppose, client engagement, client wins, client acquisitions. Design helps that, but you also mentioned solving some compliance needs. And are there any other things that may be a little bit hidden that design actually does support that you wouldn't obviously think of when you think about the benefits of design?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Jaime said, the benefits to the primary value chain, client acquisition, distribution, all the things, they're all self-evident, if you like, what everybody strives for. But what you're referring to is secondary benefits to secondary personas or stakeholders in the process. One of them is indeed compliance. Using design to solve compliance problems is an important part. Another one is team building. This is something we keep forgetting, but design is fun. It really is. When you sit through a design sprint, when you design prototypes, it's a chance to involve the entire team, especially at times where everybody's working from home, working remotely. It's a platform for creativity. It's a way to bring a team together. And when we start a project, we make a point of trying to involve as many people as possible. Try to get the director of the company to not weigh in on every decision, to get everyone involved, and then of course the process will take its turn. Another area that I want to bring in here is the benefits would be to cost savings, and it's probably something we don't think of because we think of design as being expensive, as designed objects, and things made by Apple that is, a paragon of design, which, is going to be more expensive. But design can really, really help bring costs down. I'll give you an example over here. So we had a design process where we tried to increase the amount of onboardings. We had an onboarding process, and the customer was seeing a lot of drop-offs. And the reason for that was because essentially, once you break it down to usability, was because the form was extremely complex. Instead, what we did was we came up with a few ideas, a design sprint, and we fell upon the idea of a partial conversion. This is something that we bring in from e-commerce, of all places, where actually what you do is you just ask for the user to supply the barely minimum information, just what you need to create them an account. And then after that, you start building on that profile until they reach a threshold of know your customer, of onboarding, all these things that you can actually start an account. But the point is that design in that case, instead of, because this wasn't actually us designing anything. This was just a thought process, if you like, help bring the cost of onboarding clients considerably. And of course, as we know, keeping clients is also more cost effective than acquiring them. So once you apply the same thinking over to servicing, then it brings costs more and more down, etc. So many secondary benefits to using design across the entire organization, and not just on the primary value chain.
Got it. It's fantastic. So how do firms move forward? So they want to bring design thinking, they want to bring design further into their technological experience, whether internal or external for clients, or maybe for intermediaries, whoever their sort of ecosystem of users is. What do they have to do? I mean, is this, when we talk about digital, we talk about it needs to be board level, needs to be led by this, certain person on the C-suite driving change through the organization, shifting the mindset. Jaime, from your perspective as a firm that delivers technology to the industry and has design as one of its principles in doing so, what's your advice to any wealth manager when they say, okay, look, we need to engage design, however it looks and feels, and sorry for using that term, Theo, but
okay,
what do they need to do? Where do they start?
Always from my experience, there are some elements that you have to consider when you face designing a unique wealth management platform. First, you need to identify the main sponsor of the project, the stakeholders, as Theo said. Second, you have to apply human resources. Don't forget, that's important. And now, I mean, how we work, you have to work agile. Someone has to make decisions. So you need a product owner. Sometimes we face some projects that are not really ahead of the project on our client's side, and decisions have to be made. You need to be able to pivot, because I have some examples with projects. We sign a contract with a 1 year and a half project, and we sign a contract very detailed. When we start a project, things will start changing, and at the end, what we have developed from what they wanted doesn't have anything to do. But if you are agile, if you listen and you have the tools and you can put those pieces together, at the end you can make what the client needs. I mean, let's talk about 1 month development. In agile is, what do you want to develop in 1 month? So we can test it, we see if we can change it, and from that we can keep on working. So the tool has to be really modular. You need to have a very open architecture. Integrations. We know at TechRules that we don't have everything, but there are other companies out there that do magnificent things, that you want to integrate and add value. So the solution has to be really open to integrate and add value from other solutions. Data quality, as I said before, as something when we started project, said, look, without data, we have nothing. You can have very nice things, nice workflows, but the information is not coming in properly. You won't be able to work. Mobile first. Nowadays, I mean, if you all have a bank, 99% of the actions you make is through your mobile. So that's the future. Forget, if you're only thinking about web design, I think you're in the right direction. So whatever you develop you have to be able to work on mobile. Yeah. And also, and finally, invest regularly. I mean, once you have the solution, it has to be alive. Live means every year you need a bucket so you can spend to make changes or add new functionalities of processes so that you really, really empower and people really engage with the tool. If you don't have users engage with the tool, you're out. That solution will have an end. It will not survive. So the best way to have it alive is, every year, okay, we're in September. What do we want to do in next year? What do we want to have? What functionality would be a must be and what is a nice to have? Yeah. So that has to be reviewed. If you don't think about this and you just have a solution that you don't improve it, then that solution will have an end, basically.
Yep. Theo, I think that aligns with what you said earlier. This is a continuum, right? It's not a hard, start and stop project.
Yeah.
And it's integral to the organization. Any other elements that you would pick up either from what Jaime said or that you would add to what he said?
Yeah, well, I think it's I think that every vendor in this industry agrees on these things. So there is actually full alignment to what Jaime just said. So I'm just going to build on it a little bit, just to add a little color in it. First of all, in terms of people and process, agile and everything, I think that the good news is that my feedback from the market is that we're getting there. We're almost there. There was a point where I'd get on a call and I start talking about agile and evolution and change and MVPs and stuff, and I'd have to explain the terms. I don't have to do that anymore. I don't have to go to a call and talk about agile. People might say, I'm not sure how agile would work for us because, we need to have sign-off points and all that kind of stuff. But you don't have to explain, and everybody knows that this is the best way forward. So we're getting there in terms of process. I'm pretty sure that, our constant convincing has started bearing fruit there. The second part is about toolkit, is about getting the applications that will give you mobile first, open to integrations, all these things that Jaime just described. And for me, that summarizes as a separation of concerns. Get the right tool to do the right job. There's going to be excellent portfolio management tools out there. There's going to be excellent financial systems out there. We developed an experience platform, an experience system to do nothing but UX. We don't care about the data, as it, who calculates it, what the structure of it is, and all that stuff. We want to deliver it. That's what we do, and we want the system that does what it does, and it does it really well. The last thing to say, and this I think is the immediate thing to do, and hopefully I'll stop saying that in about a year's time, but I still need to say that because that's the one bit that is failing now. Measure everything. Put data, listeners, and trackers into everything. Even if you don't have the dashboards now, even if you don't have the Power BIs, in our case, the analytics are embedded. Even if you don't have the dashboards and the ML, the machine learning algorithms to analyze it now, start collecting it. Don't do it now, do it yesterday. Go back in time if you can and start collecting data. Every minute that goes by that somebody clicks somewhere on your site or your portal and you're not recording that click, that's value lost. Do it now. Do it yesterday.
Yep.
Sorry, when I forgot to name another element about this is the budget. Very important.
Budget.
Budget. And now, I mean, we see many people like us. I mean, you can have a ready to go white level solution that perfectly helps you to start a business. Huh? And that is not much cost. You know exactly what you have, and you can start with that, and then build up on it. Or if you have enough budget, you do a custom built digital solution. That's something you have to consider from start. Don't try to go to something that is really more sophisticated and more cost maintenance if your budget is limited.
Perfect. Actually thinking about that, and we've talked about data. Data is critical. We know that, and we're increasingly seeing chief data officers in organizations or departments that are responsible for data. And we talk about having this, this sort of data lake and enabling data across the organization. We see things like chief digital officers. So is design a kind of functional area that should be separated, that should be running across the organization with a chief design officer? I mean, does it come to that point like it does in other areas of responsibility in the industry? Should that happen? Theo, I don't know whether you have a view on, is design a functional area that therefore should work across the business?
Different organization. First of all, yes, but there is a question whether this is something that you can outsource, say, to an organization like ours or your agency, or whether you should insource it. So when it comes to bigger companies, we have been speaking with one of the bigger fund managers in the UK, and they don't just have a person looking after design, they have an entire team. The same thing with a prominent Swiss companies that we know intimately. They have brought that entire function in place, and they have got an entire team to look after the design system, the design language. And everybody that wants to build anything, they kind of have to go to them and to say, what component did you recommend for me to be able to deliver that service? Smaller companies tend to outsource this. But if they do, they need to kind of have a strategic partner rather than somebody they call in whenever they want something designed. Just move away from the something. You need to have a strategic partner that will fulfill the same role, that will act as a brand guardian or a design char, if you like, that you can actually go to and just say, I need to deliver this. How does it feel within our general design strategy?
Mm-hmm. And Jaime, picking up on your question, so is there a budget for design, or is design already budgeted into technology integrations, technology development, other projects?
Yeah, I think from what I see, it's right now, I think it's more involved. It's the second answer that you mentioned. Design. I mean, I see the head of product in my clients, and they consider designing as a very important point. As Theo said, if you're a smaller company, you can outsource completely, and you have these companies that are very dedicated on this. I mean, you just consider this as a very important point within the development of the product. I mean, it's a topic that head of product has to consider. But I see in new companies, you're starting to see this figure as I don't know in the head of project, but a very important piece of the work.
And we have a couple of questions, but before I go to that, can we just summarize what the components of design is? So again, Theo, I'm going to throw in the term you hate. When I think of design, I think first of all of look and feel. What does it look like, right? So the prettiness, the colors, whatever, the graphics. But you're telling me, I think the design has far more to it in terms of particularly technological experiences that a client or advisor will have. So what are the components of design for a wealth manager? What should they be thinking about?
So branding for sure, which is what we know as look and feel. It's a primary means to communicate differentiation. So the logos, the color, the fonts, the look and feel, as you say, that is an important element, and you need to keep that consistent. There's nothing that jars more than to receive a piece of communication that is inconsistent, who's got a different logo or everything. But marketing people, brand angels, they kind of like, they're really conversant in that, so that's okay. I see as another remit of design the flow within the experience. So as you go from touch point to touch point, as you go from first visiting the website to your second visit, to you filling in a contact form, to an advisor getting in touch and taking you through the sales process, onboarding, reporting, account management, closure, all these things, every touch point here is the remit of design, not just to apply the branding and make sure that it's consistent, but also the flow. And I will also add in here the element of a design soldier, if you like, or a design general that has given enough of a power to say no, to say to the compliance team, that's not the way that we're going to do this. I acknowledge the fact that for regulatory reasons, we need to present these terms and conditions to the user, but that actually doesn't work for us. We're going to move it there when we need it. To the design general that will be able to say not just no, that will be able to rethink and move things out, just say, this is too complicated here. It's going to cost us in terms of the flow within the touch points. Therefore, we're going to hide it, we're going to obscure it, we're going to maybe make it accessible through some secondary functionality, some secondary tree. So that idea that you empower design to look through your entire flow, not just one touch point, but across all of them, is an important one. And it takes in branding, it takes flow, it takes thinking.
Perfect. And Jaime, over to you. I mean, you mentioned things like APIs, so I'm just thinking of the components of designs from your perspective.
Well, going back to the beginning, I mean, for me, design is surveys, goal setting, the content strategy, and the user experience, of course, strategy, testing the solution. Everything involves designing. The audits, the seat architecture, and those prototypes that you need. It's a whole process. At the end, the final thing about all this is the journeys of your solution have to be really fit to the purpose.
Perfect. We've got a couple of minutes left. Actually, we have a question for each of you. So, Jaime, I'm going to read this one out first to you. I think you might be able to see it too, but your platforms and tools are successfully addressing the long tail and democratizing wealth management for the masses. So I think, referencing your robo-advisory solutions, and perhaps some others. Are you thinking of adapting or extending your proposition to address the digital needs of, the question says, proper wealth managers, i.e. those who manage high net worths and ultra high net worths? But I think you play there anyway. But are you building products to service the core private banking wealth management market and therefore high net worth and ultra high net worth clients?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we try to cover all the segments and ultra high net worth individuals. But the more you go to the ultra high, the more functionality you need, the more complex the problem becomes. Okay, so you need to add. That's why for instance, I talk about blockchains, adding these new real estate assets or all that type of instruments into your platform, so you have a much wider picture of the wealth of the client, or what we call the global balance sheet of the client, of course. But still, you need to check all the information. The machine can work, but at the end, you need the final check to see that the information is correct. But yeah, of course, there's a lot to do. And artificial intelligence also help us to read the data and see that, check that whenever you update daily that data, that everything comes in a proper way.
Perfect. And Theo, we have one for you. We have 20 seconds left until the hour. Sometimes I think this thing might shut us off after about 2 minutes past the hour. So let's see whether we get this done. So the question is, I like your view of design as more than look and feel and an ongoing process. But as far as I know, Invessed is primarily offering customized front-end solutions to players. This assumes they already have well-shaped offerings and operational platforms that support them. So can the role of design be extended to shape the value proposition itself? So experience design as product design. Could this therefore stimulate conservative private wealth for bolder steps into digital?
Not only it can, but it has already. So just to tell you this, I mean, we take this now for granted because it is more than a decade old, but robo-advice or digital-first wealth managers were actually the product of design thinking. Somebody consciously sat down, assessed the value chain of a wealth manager and just said, I bet I can make money. I can reshape the value chain by bringing everything to digital and by focusing on low-cost products. So it already has done that. All it takes, and we hopefully will be part of that conversation, all it takes for somebody to make the next jump, to actually look at design across organizations to say, I can optimize it to a certain degree that I don't just do the same things better, but I do better things.
Fantastic. Well, both, before we get shut off, thank you very much. So Theo, Jaime, thank you again for your time. Very interesting. And we'll welcome talking to you again on similar topics. So the audience, this recording will be available straight after this. So thanks again for signing in. If you have any questions for either of the panelists, please send them through. We'll happily forward them on. For me, it's clear design in wealth management and technological experience is core, and another one of the elements alongside data and digitalization and other things that should be increasing reference points for the market. So thank you again, both. Really interesting, much appreciated, and we will speak to you all again very soon.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.